The Great Hall of the Galactic Council was filled with voices. Hundreds of aliens from different worlds sat in their seats, talking and arguing. The room was huge, with walls that seemed to go up forever. Light came from strange crystals floating in the air above them. Queen Thera stood in the center of the hall. She was tall and beautiful, but also frightening. Her body was covered in blue crystal that caught the light. When she moved, the crystals made soft sounds like glass touching glass. She looked at the other aliens around her with cold eyes. She was not afraid of anyone here. The queen had come here to make a statement. Her empire, the Velkari, had conquered 17 star systems in just 1 year. Her armies were strong. Her ships were fast. Her soldiers were trained to kill without mercy. She wanted everyone in this room to know that the Velkari Empire was the most powerful force in the galaxy. Next to her stood General Cora, her chief military leader. Cora was shorter but even more dangerous looking. She had scars across her crystalline face from many battles. She carried 2 curved blades on her back. Everyone knew that Cora had personally killed thousands of enemies in combat. The head of the council, an old alien named Vex, raised one of his many arms for silence. The room slowly became quiet. Vex had been leading this council for 50 years. He had seen empires rise and fall. He looked tired. "Queen Thera, you have asked to speak before this council," Vex said. His voice was deep and sad. "Please tell us why you are here." The queen smiled. It was not a kind smile. "I am here to inform you all of my next move," she said. Her voice was clear and strong. It filled the entire hall. "My empire will now expand into the Outer Rim territories. We will take control of the colonies there. They will become part of the Velkari Empire." Whispers spread through the hall. The Outer Rim was where the newest species lived. Young civilizations that had just learned to travel between stars. They were weak. They had no strong armies. Most of the older aliens in the room did not care much about them. But one voice spoke up. It came from a small corner of the hall where the newest members of the council sat. "Excuse me, Your Majesty." Everyone turned to look. A young woman stood up. She was human. Her name was Nari. She wore simple blue clothes with a small badge that showed she represented Earth. She looked very young compared to most beings in the room. Some of them were thousands of years old. Nari was only 28. Queen Thera turned her cold eyes toward the human. "Ah, yes," she said with a mocking tone. The humans. "Tell me, child, do you have something to say?" Some of the aliens laughed. Humans were new to galactic politics. Earth had only joined the council 5 years ago. Most species saw them as primitive creatures who had barely learned to leave their own planet. They were soft. They died easily. They had small ships and weak weapons. Nari walked slowly to the center of the hall. She did not look afraid. She stopped a few meters from Queen Thera and looked directly into her crystal eyes. "The Outer Rim includes 12 human colonies," Nari said calmly. "We have settlements on those worlds, families, children, people who are trying to build new lives and," Queen Thera said, "they will be allowed to live. Under Velkari rule, they should be grateful we are not simply destroying them." More laughter from the aliens. General Cora stepped forward. "Little human," she said in a threatening voice, "your species is weak. You have been in space for only 30 years. We have been conquering worlds for 3,000 years. What can you possibly do to stop us?" Nari did not move. She kept her eyes on Queen Thera. "Your Majesty," she said quietly, "I strongly advise against attacking human territory. It would be a mistake. A terrible mistake." The queen laughed now. It was a harsh sound. "A mistake? You think your primitive ships can fight my fleets? You think your weak soldiers can stand against my legions? Tell me, human, what makes you so confident?" The hall was completely silent now. Every being waited to hear what this young human would say. How could she possibly threaten the mighty Velkari Empire? It seemed like a joke. Nari took a breath. Then she spoke 2 words. Just 2 simple words. But the way she said them made something change in the air. She said them slowly and clearly, like a judge giving a final sentence. "Jinte." The effect was immediate. Several aliens gasped. Others went completely still. An old warrior from the Krex Empire actually stood up from his seat, his face showing shock. Even Vex, the ancient council leader, looked suddenly alert. Queen Thera felt her confidence crack just a little. She had heard that name before, somewhere, in reports maybe, or in whispered stories her soldiers told. But she could not remember the details. She looked at General Cora. The general's face had gone pale, her crystal skin losing some of its blue color. "What is this?" Queen Thera demanded. Who is this Jinte? Some human general? An old alien from the back of the hall spoke up. His voice shook slightly. Your Majesty, he said. You were not yet queen during the First Contact War. You may not know the stories. But those of us who were there remember. We remember very well. Another alien, a female from the Zenti Collective, stood up. She looked at Nari with something like fear in her eyes. Is he still alive? She asked quietly. Nari smiled for the first time. It was a small, cold smile. Yes, she said. Commander Tay is very much alive. And if you attack our colonies, he will respond. I promise you that. General Cora grabbed Queen Thera's arm. Your Majesty, she whispered urgently. We need to talk now in private. But the Queen pulled her arm away. She was angry now. Angry at the fear she saw in her general's eyes. Angry at the way the other aliens were looking at her with pity. Angry that one name spoken by a weak human could create such a reaction. This council is finished, Queen Thera announced. My decision stands. The Velkari fleet will move into the Outer Rim in 3 days. If the humans want to fight, let them try. We will crush them like we have crushed everyone else. She turned and walked toward the exit, her crystalline body moving with angry grace. General Cora followed, but she kept looking back at the human ambassador with worried eyes. As they left, the hall erupted in conversation. Aliens were talking urgently to each other. Some were already calling their homeworlds. Others were calculating how to stay out of what was about to happen. Nari stood alone in the center of the hall for a moment. Then she took out a small communication device. She typed a short message and sent it. The message had only 3 words. He is needed. The message traveled through space at the speed of light. It crossed star systems and nebulas. It passed by dead worlds and living ones. Finally, after many hours, it reached a small colony planet called Haven. There, on a quiet farm far from any city, a device beeped softly. A man working in a field heard the beep. He stopped what he was doing. He had not heard that sound in 15 years. He had hoped he would never hear it again. His hands began to shake slightly as he walked toward the house. The war that Queen Thera had started with her pride was about to teach her a lesson. A lesson that the galaxy had learned once before. A lesson written in blood and fire across countless battlefields. Never threaten humanity, because somewhere among them, warriors like Jinte are always watching, always waiting, always ready. 15 years earlier, Earth was a very different place. Humans had only recently built their first ships that could travel faster than light. They were excited about meeting aliens and joining the galactic community. They thought the universe would welcome them with open arms. They were wrong. 3 alien empires saw Earth as a prize. The planet was rich in resources. It had water, minerals, and billions of humans who could be used as slave labor. The 3 empires formed an alliance. They called it the Coalition of Progress, but it was really just an excuse to steal and conquer. The coalition sent a simple message to Earth. Surrender peacefully, and your people will be allowed to live as workers for our empires. Resist and we will destroy every city, every town, every farm. We will wipe humanity from existence. Earth's leaders met in emergency sessions. Some wanted to surrender. They said that fighting was pointless. The aliens had ships that could destroy planets. They had weapons that could turn entire armies to ash in seconds. They had been fighting wars in space for thousands of years while humans were still learning. But others refused to give up. One man stood before the military council and said something that changed everything. His name was Jinte. He was only 30 years old, but he had already earned a reputation as one of Earth's best tactical minds. He had studied every war in human history. He understood how weaker forces could defeat stronger ones. We will not surrender, Tay told the council. His voice was calm but filled with certainty. We will fight, and we will win. Not because we are stronger, not because we have better weapons, but because we understand something these aliens do not. We understand survival. We understand adaptation. And we understand that humans never give up when our homes are threatened. The council was skeptical, but they had no other choice. They put Tay in command of a small fleet. He chose his crew carefully. He picked people who were not just skilled but creative. People who could think differently. People who would follow him into hell if necessary. Among them was Lieutenant Kai, a young pilot with incredible reflexes. Captain Mina, an engineer who could fix anything with whatever materials she could find. Sergeant Yoon, a soldier who had survived more battles than anyone else in the military. They became the core of what would later be called the Ghost Squadron. The first battle happened near Mars. The Coalition fleet arrived with 50 ships. They were huge, each one 3 times the size of the largest human vessel. They moved in perfect formation, confident and proud. They sent one final message to Earth. This is your last chance to surrender. Commander Tay did not respond with words. Instead, he responded with action. His small fleet of 12 ships suddenly broke apart. They scattered in different directions, moving in ways that seemed random and chaotic. The Coalition ships tried to follow them, breaking their own formation to chase. That was exactly what Tay wanted. Once the enemy ships were spread out, the human ships turned and attacked. But they did not attack with weapons. Instead, they rammed themselves into the alien ships, detonating their reactors on impact. 5 Coalition ships exploded in the first minute of battle. The aliens were shocked. What kind of species would destroy their own ships in suicide attacks? They did not understand that those ships had already been evacuated. The crews had escaped in small pods that floated away like pieces of debris. The ships were just weapons now, guided by remote control. Before the Coalition could regroup, the human crews in their escape pods activated weapons they had hidden in nearby asteroids. Missiles and mines that had been placed there weeks earlier. Suddenly, the space around Mars became a death trap. Coalition ships exploded one after another. By the time the battle ended, 30 Coalition ships had been destroyed. The remaining 20 retreated in panic. The humans had lost 12 ships but 0 crew members. Commander Tay had won his first victory against impossible odds, but this was just the beginning. Over the next 2 years, Tay fought battle after battle. He never fought the way the aliens expected. When they thought he would attack, he would hide. When they thought he would retreat, he would charge. He turned space stations into bombs. He used gravity fields to throw asteroids at enemy fleets. He hacked into Coalition communication systems and spread lies that made them distrust each other. The Ghost Squadron became famous, and then they became legendary. Stories spread across the galaxy about the human commander, who could not be predicted, who fought with no honor but absolute effectiveness, who seemed to know what his enemies would do before they did it themselves. One story was about the Battle of Titan. Tay was outnumbered 5-1. Instead of fighting in space, he lured the Coalition fleet into Titan's thick atmosphere. The alien ships were too big and clumsy to maneuver well in the heavy clouds. Tay's smaller ships danced around them, firing precision strikes at their engines. Within an hour, 40 enemy ships had crashed into Titan's surface. Another story was about how Tay led a boarding party onto a Coalition command ship. He and 50 soldiers fought through corridors filled with thousands of enemy troops. They used the ship's own design against it, sealing off sections and venting the atmosphere. They captured the command center and took the Coalition admiral prisoner. Then they escaped before reinforcements could arrive. But the most famous story was about the end of the war. After 2 years of constant defeats, the Coalition decided to finish things with one massive attack. They gathered every ship they had left, over 300 vessels. They were going to attack Earth directly and end humanity once and for all. Commander Tay knew he could not stop them in open battle. So he did something that no one expected. He took his flagship, the vessel called Hope's Edge, and flew it directly at the Coalition's main command station. The station was protected by 50 ships and had shields that could withstand any weapon, but Tay did not plan to attack from outside. He surrendered. He sent a message saying he was giving up, asking for peace talks. The Coalition leaders, eager to capture the famous human commander, allowed his ship to dock with their station. They thought they had won. What happened next became the stuff of nightmares for alien soldiers across the galaxy. Tay and his crew of 200 soldiers fought their way through the station. They did not fight like soldiers. They fought like demons. They knew they were probably going to die, so they held nothing back. They moved through the station like shadows, killing quietly when they could, loudly when they had to. They set charges on critical systems. They sabotaged life support. They spread terror among the thousands of aliens on board. No one felt safe. The humans seemed to be everywhere at once. Tay himself led the final push to the command center. He fought through waves of guards, taking wounds but never stopping. His crew followed him, protecting his back. When they finally reached the Coalition leaders, Tay gave them a choice. Order your fleet to retreat and end this war, or I will detonate the charges my team has placed throughout this station. and we all die together." The coalition leaders looked into Tay's eyes and saw something that terrified them. They saw that he meant every word. This human would absolutely sacrifice himself and everyone on the station if it meant saving his homeworld. They had never seen such determination, such willingness to die. They surrendered. They called off the attack on Earth. They signed a peace treaty right there with Tay's gun still pointed at their heads. The war was over. Humanity had survived, and Commander Jin Tay became a legend that would be told across the galaxy for generations. After the war ended, Tay and his crew returned to Earth as heroes. There were parades and medals and ceremonies, but Tay did not attend most of them. He was haunted by what he had done, by the lives he had taken, by the orders he had given that sent people to their deaths. Even though he had saved humanity, he felt like he had lost part of his own humanity in the process. 1 year after the war, Commander Jin Tay resigned from the military. He took his wife Hana and left Earth. They traveled to a colony world called Haven, bought a small farm, and disappeared from public life. Tay hoped he would never have to fight again. He hoped the galaxy would leave him in peace. But peace never lasts forever, and now 15 years later, the galaxy was about to remember why no one should ever threaten humanity. Because even though Jin Tay had left the war behind, the warrior inside him had never truly gone away. It was just sleeping, waiting. Queen Thera sat in her private chambers on board the Sovereign Dawn, her flagship. The room was beautiful, decorated with crystals from her home world. Soft light filled the space, but she could not enjoy it. Her mind was troubled. That name kept echoing in her thoughts. Jin Tay. General Cora stood before her looking nervous. The queen had never seen her general look nervous before. Cora was the most feared warrior in the Velkari Empire. She had fought in 100 battles and won them all, but now she looked like she wanted to be anywhere else. "Tell me everything," Queen Thera commanded. Her voice was cold. "Who is this human that makes even you afraid?" General Cora took a deep breath. "Your Majesty," she began, "I was young during the First Contact War. I was only a junior officer. But I studied that war carefully when I became a general. I studied it because I never wanted to make the same mistakes the coalition made." The queen waved her hand impatiently. "Get to the point. Jin Tay killed over 50,000 enemy soldiers during that war," Cora said quietly. "Most of them in close combat. He led over 200 boarding actions. His forces destroyed more than 400 ships. He never lost a battle, not one. And the most terrifying thing about him was not his skills or his tactics. It was his mind." The queen stood up and walked to the window. Outside, she could see her fleet. 300 ships all ready for war. The most powerful force she had ever commanded. "How can one human be such a threat?" she asked. "We have armies. We have weapons that can destroy planets. What can one man do?" Cora stepped closer. "Your Majesty," she said carefully, "Jin Tay is not just one man. He is a symbol. When he was fighting the coalition, soldiers from other species actually deserted their own armies to avoid facing him. Some aliens committed suicide rather than go into battle against the Ghost Squadron. The fear he created was more powerful than any weapon." "Stories," Queen Thera said dismissively. "Legends, propaganda." The coalition was weak. They let themselves be defeated by primitive humans because they were not committed to total war. "We are different. The Velkari do not know fear," but Cora shook her head. "The coalition was not weak, Your Majesty. They had 3 empires worth of resources. They had technology far beyond what humans possessed. They lost because Jin Tay understood something fundamental. He understood that in war, the strongest force does not always win. The most adaptable force wins. The force that is willing to do whatever it takes." The queen turned back to face her general. "Are you suggesting we cancel the invasion? That we show weakness before this council? That we let one human's reputation dictate our empire's policy?" "I am suggesting caution," Cora replied. "I am suggesting we learn more before we commit. We should find out if Jin Tay is truly still alive. If he is, we should find out if he is still capable of fighting. 15 years is a long time. Perhaps the legends have grown larger than the man." Queen Thera thought about this. Her pride wanted to reject the advice. She had announced the invasion publicly. Backing down now would make her look weak. But she had not become queen by being foolish. "Fine," she said. "Send our intelligence operatives to find this Jin Tay. I want to know everything about him, where he is, what he is doing. whether he is a threat or just an old soldier living on past glory. Cora bowed and left the chamber. The queen sat back down in her crystalline throne. She stared at the stars outside her window. Somewhere out there, a human was living his life, unaware that an empire was now studying him. She promised herself that once her spies confirmed he was no real threat, she would proceed with the invasion. Nothing would stop her conquest. But even as she made this promise, a small part of her felt uneasy. She had seen the faces of the older aliens in that council chamber. They were beings who had lived through countless wars. They had seen empires rise and fall, and they had all reacted to that name with genuine fear. That kind of fear was not built on stories alone. 3 days passed. The Velkari intelligence network worked quickly. They tracked down information about Jin-Tae. They found his location. He was living on a colony world called Haven, working as a farmer. He had a wife and a daughter. He lived a simple life, far from any military bases or strategic locations. The reports included surveillance images. They showed a man in his mid-40s, fit, but not exceptionally so. He wore simple clothes. He worked in fields. He played with his daughter. He looked like any normal person trying to live a peaceful life. There was nothing scary about him in these images. Queen Thera looked at the images and felt relief. This was the legendary warrior. This farmer, she had been worried for nothing. The ghost stories were just that, stories. The man had probably been lucky during the war. Or perhaps his victories had been exaggerated over time. Either way, he was clearly not a threat now. She called General Cora back to her chambers. "Look at this," she said, showing her the images. "This is your terrifying Jin-Tae, a farmer, a father, a man who has not held a weapon in 15 years. Do you still think we should fear him?" Cora studied the images carefully. Then she said something that made the queen pause. "Your Majesty, the most dangerous predators are the ones that look harmless. This man defeated 3 empires. He walked into an enemy command station knowing he would probably die. He fought for 2 years against impossible odds and never broke. Do you really think such a man forgets how to fight just because he plants crops?" Queen Thera's patience finally broke. "Enough," she shouted. "I'm tired of your fear. I am tired of these warnings. The invasion begins tomorrow. We will take the human colonies. If this Jin-Tae tries to stop us, we will destroy him. I want to see for myself if he is the monster from the stories or just an old man pretending to be one." Cora bowed deeply. "As you command, Your Majesty. But please let me take extra precautions. Let me assign our best scouts to watch for any sign of human military buildup. Let me prepare defensive strategies in case things do not go as planned." "Fine," the queen said dismissively. "Do what you want. But make sure the fleet is ready to move tomorrow at dawn. We have wasted enough time on ghosts and legends." That night, Queen Thera tried to sleep but could not. She kept thinking about the way Ambassador Nari had said that name. There had been such certainty in her voice, such quiet confidence. The young human had not threatened or bluffed. She had simply stated a fact as if saying the name alone was enough. The queen got up and looked at the images again. She studied the man called Jin-Tae. He was smiling in one photo, laughing with his daughter. He looked kind, gentle, normal. But then she noticed his eyes. Even in these casual photos, his eyes held something. A depth, a hardness, like someone who had seen too much and survived it. She put the images away and went back to bed. Tomorrow her fleet would invade human space. Tomorrow she would prove that the Velkari Empire feared nothing and no one. Tomorrow she would show the galaxy that legends were just stories. But in her dreams that night, Queen Thera saw those eyes again. The farmer's eyes, the warrior's eyes, and in her dreams they were looking directly at her with an expression that made her crystalline body feel cold. It was not anger in those eyes. It was something worse. It was certainty. The same certainty that had been in Ambassador Nari's voice. On Haven, the man in the photos stood outside his house, looking up at the stars. He had received the message. He had made his decision. His wife stood beside him, holding his hand. She knew what was coming. She had always known this day might arrive. Tomorrow Jin-Tae would stop being a farmer. Tomorrow he would become a warrior again. And the galaxy was about to remember why his name was spoken with fear, why entire armies had run from him, why the First Contact War had ended not with humanity's defeat, but with their enemies begging for peace. The stars above looked peaceful and beautiful, but soon they would be filled with fire and death. Queen Thera had made her choice. She had chosen war. And now she would learn the same lesson the Coalition had learned 15 years ago. Never underestimate humans, and never ever threaten their homes. The morning sun rose over Haven, painting the fields in gold and orange. Tay stood at the edge of his property, watching the light spread across the land. His daughter Sue came running out of the house, still in her pajamas. She was 7 years old, full of energy and innocence. She did not know yet what was happening. "Papa," she called out. "Are you coming for breakfast? Mama made your favorite." Tay turned and smiled at her. It was a real smile, warm and full of love. "Yes," he said. "I am coming. But first, come here. I need to tell you something." Sue ran to him and he picked her up, holding her close. She looked at his face and saw something that made her curious. "Papa, why do you look sad?" she asked. "I have to go away for a while," Tay said gently. "There are people who need my help. Bad people are trying to hurt good people, and I have to stop them." Sue frowned. "But you are a farmer," she said. "How can you stop bad people?" Tay hugged her tighter. "I was not always a farmer," he said. "Before you were born, before I met your mama, I was a soldier. I fought to protect people, and now I have to do it one more time. Will you come back?" Sue asked in a small voice. "I promise," Tay said. He looked into her eyes. "I will always come back to you. Always." He carried her back to the house. Hannah was standing in the doorway watching them. She had been crying, but she had wiped away her tears before Sue could see. Tay set their daughter down and sent her inside to eat breakfast. Then he turned to his wife. "How long?" Hannah asked quietly. "I do not know," Tay admitted. "The Velkari fleet is large. If this becomes a full war, it could take months, maybe longer." Hannah reached up and touched his face. "I knew this day would come," she said. "When I married you, I knew who you were, what you had done. I knew that one day someone would need the warrior again, not the farmer. I do not want to go," Tay said. His voice cracked slightly. "I want to stay here. I want to watch Sue grow up. I want to grow old with you. I want to forget about war and death and all the things I have done. But you have to go," Hannah said. "Because if you do not, millions of people will die. Families like ours. Children like Sue. You are the only one who can stop this. The galaxy knows it. Your old crew knows it. And you know it too." Tay pulled her close and held her. They stood like that for a long time, not speaking, just being together, knowing that this peaceful life they had built was about to be interrupted, possibly destroyed, but also knowing that some things were worth fighting for. Some things were worth the sacrifice. An hour later, the first of his old crew began to arrive. Lieutenant Kai came first, landing his small ship in the field behind the house. He looked older now, with gray hair at his temples. But when he saw Tay, he smiled the same reckless smile from 15 years ago. "Commander," Kai said, saluting. "It is good to see you again." "Just Tay," he replied. "I am not a commander anymore." Kai shook his head. "You will always be our commander," he said. "We have been waiting for you to call us back, all of us. We never really stopped being the Ghost Squadron. We just pretended to have normal lives." More ships arrived throughout the morning. Captain Mina, who had spent 15 years running a shipping company while secretly maintaining a network of contacts across the galaxy. Sergeant Yoon, who had trained thousands of soldiers while waiting for the day he would fight alongside his commander again. Others came too. People Tay had fought with, people he had saved, people who owed him their lives. By noon, over 50 people had gathered at the farm. They stood in the field looking at Tay with expectation. These were not young soldiers anymore. They were older, some with gray hair, some with scars, some with families of their own, but they had all come when called. They had all left their peaceful lives behind to follow him one more time. Tay looked at them and felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders like an old coat. He had hoped to never wear this coat again, but it fit him perfectly, as if he had never taken it off. "Thank you all for coming," he said. His voice was steady now, the voice of a commander addressing his troops. "I know what I am asking of you. I know that you have lives, families, dreams that have nothing to do with war. But war is coming whether we want it or not. The Velkari Empire has decided to invade human space. If we do not stop them, millions will die." He paused, looking at each face. "We are not young anymore," he continued. "We are not the Ghost Squadron that fought the Coalition. We are older, slower, maybe not as sharp as we once were, but we have something they do not have. We have experience. We have wisdom. We have fought together and survived together, and we know how to win even when the odds are against us." Captain Mina stepped forward. "What is the plan, Commander?" she asked. Tay pulled out a datapad and projected a hologram into the air. It showed the outer rim territories and the path the Velkari fleet would likely take. "The enemy has 300 ships," he said. "We have authorization from Earth Command to assemble a fleet of 50 ships. We are outnumbered 6-1. Someone in the crowd laughed. "Just like old times," they said. Tay smiled grimly. "Yes, just like old times. But we cannot fight them head-on. We need to be smart. We need to use everything we learned in the last war. The Velkari are confident. They think we are weak. We will let them keep thinking that until it is too late." He zoomed in on a section of space near the third colony world. "This is where we will make our stand," he said. "We will evacuate the colonies. Make it look like we are running scared. We will let the Velkari fleet move deep into our territory. And then we will spring the trap." Sergeant Yoon studied the map. "What kind of trap?" he asked. "The same kind we used against the Coalition," Tay said. "Psychological warfare. Hit-and-run attacks. Making them paranoid and afraid. We will not give them a clear enemy to fight. We will be ghosts again, appearing from nowhere, striking hard and vanishing before they can respond. We will make them doubt every sensor reading, every communication, every order from their commanders." Lieutenant Kai grinned. "I have been running simulations for 15 years, he said, thinking about what I would do if we ever had to fight again. "I have some ideas that might interest you, Commander." "Good," Tay said. "We will need every idea we can get. Captain Mina, I need you to coordinate with the colonies. Get civilian transports ready for evacuation. Make it look chaotic and panicked. I want the Velkari to think we are completely unprepared." Mina nodded. "Consider it done, Sergeant Yoon." Tay continued. "I need you to organize boarding teams. If we get the chance to capture any Velkari ships, I want to be ready. We need to learn their technology, their communications, their weaknesses," Yoon smiled. "I have been training people for this," he said. "Just in case, we will be ready." Tay looked around at all of them. "This is going to be hard," he said. "Some of us may not come back. The Velkari are strong and experienced, but I promise you this. If we fight smart, if we work together like we did before, we can win. We can protect our people. We can send a message to the galaxy that humanity will not be conquered." The crowd cheered. It was not a loud cheer, but it was filled with determination. These were not glory-seeking warriors. They were professionals who understood the cost of war, but they were also ready to pay that cost if necessary. That evening, Tay stood at the door of his house one last time. Hana and Sue were inside, waiting to say goodbye. He wanted to remember this moment. The peace, the love, the simple happiness of having a family. Then he walked inside, said his goodbyes, and left. He walked to the ship that would take him back to war, back to death and violence and all the things he had tried to leave behind. But he walked with his head held high, because this time he was not fighting for pride or glory. He was fighting for his daughter's future, for his wife's safety, for all the families across human space who deserved to live in peace. As his ship lifted off from Haven, Tay looked down at his farm one last time. The fields he had planted, the house he had built, the life he had created. He promised himself that when this was over, he would return. He would come back to that peaceful life. But first, he had a war to win. The Ghost Squadron was flying again, and the galaxy was about to remember why that name inspired fear. The Velkari fleet entered human space like a storm of metal and crystal. 300 ships moved in perfect formation, their weapons charged, their shields glowing with power. Queen Thera stood on the bridge of the Sovereign Dawn, watching the stars ahead of her. She felt confident, powerful, unstoppable. The first human colony appeared on their sensors. It was called New Boston. Home to 50,000 people, the Queen expected to see defensive fleets, weapons platforms, maybe even military stations. But there was nothing. The colony seemed almost abandoned. "Your Majesty," one of her officers reported, "we are detecting evacuation ships leaving the colony, civilian transports. They appear to be fleeing in panic." Queen Thera smiled. "Of course they are running," she said. "They know they cannot fight us. Let them go. We will take the colony without firing a shot." But General Cora was not smiling. She studied the sensor readings with a frown. "Something feels wrong," she said. "This is too easy. Where are their defenses? Where is their military?" The Queen waved her concerns away. "They are afraid, Cora, just like I predicted. All those stories about Jintai were nothing but propaganda. The humans are weak and they know it." The Velkari fleet moved deeper into human territory. They took New Boston without resistance. Then they moved to the second colony, New Shanghai. Again, they found only evacuating civilians. No military, no defenses, nothing but empty buildings and abandoned streets. By the third day, the Queen was feeling even more confident. They had captured 3 colonies without losing a single ship. The humans were running like scared children. She began to think about what she would tell the Galactic Council, how she would describe this easy victory, how the other species would have to respect Velkari power. Then everything changed. It happened at the 4th colony, New Sol. The Velkari fleet was spread out, securing different parts of the system. Some ships were near the colony itself. Others were at the outer planets, checking for hidden bases. The fleet was no longer in its tight defensive formation. That was when the Ghost Squadron struck. They appeared from behind an ice giant, a small group of human ships moving incredibly fast. Before the Velkari could react, the human ships fired missiles. But these were not normal missiles. They were filled with electronic warfare equipment. Suddenly, every sensor on the Velkari ships went crazy. They were seeing hundreds of targets that did not exist. Their communications were filled with static and false signals. Their weapon systems were locking onto ghosts. It was complete chaos. While the Velkari were blind and confused, the human ships moved in. They targeted the engines of isolated Velkari vessels. Quick, precise strikes. Then they disappeared back into the darkness of space before the enemy could organize a response. In 15 minutes, 12 Velkari ships were crippled, not destroyed, but damaged enough that they could not move or fight. Then the humans were gone, vanishing like ghosts. The Velkari fleet scrambled to regroup, but by then it was too late. The damage was done. Queen Thera was furious. "What just happened?" she demanded. "How did they get so close without us detecting them?" General Cora was already working on damage reports. "They used the ice giant to hide their approach," she said. "They knew exactly where our blind spots were. And these electronic warfare weapons, they are unlike anything we have encountered before. They were specifically designed to target our systems. But how?" the Queen asked. "We have only been at war for 3 days. How could they know our system so well?" Cora looked at her Queen with worried eyes. "Because Jintai has been preparing for this for 15 years, she said quietly. "Every ship we have built, every weapon we have deployed, every tactic we have used. He has been studying us, waiting for the day we would threaten humans, and now he knows exactly how to hurt us." The attacks continued over the next 2 days. The human ships never fought fair. They never gave the Velkari a chance for honorable combat. They used asteroids as cover. They attacked from multiple directions at once. They broadcasted false communications that made Velkari commanders give wrong orders. One attack was particularly devastating. A group of human ships pretended to be damaged civilian transports. When Velkari vessels approached to board them, the transports suddenly revealed themselves as military ships and opened fire at point-blank range. 10 more Velkari ships were destroyed before they realized what was happening. Another time, the humans hacked into the Velkari communication network. They sent messages that looked like they came from General Cora, ordering ships to move to certain positions. When those ships arrived, they found themselves in the middle of a minefield. The explosions could be seen from hundreds of kilometers away. The worst part was the psychological warfare. The humans started broadcasting messages on all frequencies. They were messages in the Velkari language. They named specific commanders. They talked about their families back home. They described exactly how the commanders would die if they continued fighting. The messages were not threats. They were stated as facts, cold, emotionless facts, like someone reading from a list of things that were definitely going to happen. And every time a Velkari commander did not follow human warnings, they died exactly as predicted. Ship explosions, system failures, boarding actions that left no survivors. The Velkari soldiers began to break. These were warriors who had fought in dozens of battles, who had conquered entire worlds, but they had never faced an enemy like this. An enemy that seemed to know their every move before they made it. An enemy that treated war not as a matter of honor, but as a problem to be solved with maximum efficiency. On the 5th day, 3 Velkari ships deserted. Their commanders simply ordered their vessels to leave human space and return home. They would rather face execution for desertion than continue fighting the Ghost Squadron. Queen Thera had them declared traitors, but secretly she understood their fear. General Cora came to her with the casualty reports. "Your Majesty," she said, "in 5 days we have lost 90 ships, either destroyed, crippled, or deserted. We have not seen the main human fleet yet. These are just harassment attacks. Just the Ghost Squadron doing what it does best, making us afraid. The Queen looked at the numbers and felt something she had not felt in years. Doubt. We still outnumber them, she said, but her voice lacked its usual confidence. We have 200 ships left. Surely that is enough, Cora shook her head. Numbers do not matter against an enemy like this, she said. Jintae proved that 15 years ago. He defeated 3 empires with a tiny fleet. He understands something that most military commanders do not. Fear is more powerful than weapons, and right now our soldiers are terrified. What do you suggest? Queen Thera asked. That we retreat? That we admit defeat after losing less than 1/3 of our fleet? I suggest we force them into open battle, Cora said. We know they have a main fleet somewhere. Probably only 50 ships according to our intelligence. If we can find them and engage them directly, we still have a chance. Our ships are better. Our weapons are stronger. But we cannot keep fighting ghosts. We need to fight a real enemy. Queen Thera thought about this. Then she made her decision. Find them, she ordered. Use every sensor we have. Every scout ship. Every spy drone. Find the main human fleet and bring me their location. We will end this with one decisive battle. What the Queen did not know was that Commander Tay wanted exactly this. He wanted them to look for his main fleet. He wanted them to commit to a big battle. Because when an enemy is looking for something specific, they stop paying attention to everything else, and that is when you strike. On his command ship, Tay studied the reports from his scouts. The Valkyrie were getting desperate. They were making mistakes, spreading their search pattern too thin, sending out small groups of ships to cover more area, exactly what he wanted them to do. Lieutenant Kai sat next to him. They are taking the bait, he said. Yes, Tay replied. Now we give them what they want. We let them find our main fleet. We let them think they have trapped us, and then we show them what a real trap looks like. Captain Mina checked her console. All ships are in position, Commander, she reported. The mines are deployed. The secondary strike force is hidden. We are ready, Tay nodded. Then he opened a channel to all human ships. This is Commander Tay, he said. The enemy is coming. They think they are hunting us. But we have been hunting them from the start. When they arrive, remember your training. Remember what we fight for. And remember that humans never surrender. We never give up. We win because we refuse to lose. The human crews listened to his words and felt their fear fade away. They were outnumbered. They were outgunned, but they had Jintae. And that made all the difference. The Valkyrie scouts found the human fleet near a gas giant called Tempest. They reported back to Queen Thera with excitement. Your Majesty, we have found them. 50 human ships positioned near Tempest. They appeared to be waiting for us. The Queen felt triumph surge through her. Finally, she said, a real battle. Not hiding, not tricks. Just strength against strength. Order the fleet to attack. We will crush them and end this war today. The Valkyrie fleet moved toward Tempest with all their remaining ships. 200 vessels against 50. The Queen was certain of victory. She stood on her bridge, watching the human ships appear on her sensors. This was it. The moment she would prove that the Valkyrie Empire was supreme, but General Cora felt uneasy. Something about this was too conv. The battle near Tempest lasted 3 hours. It was brutal and quick. The Valkyrie fleet fought with the courage of warriors who knew they were about to die. But courage was not enough against superior tactics and perfect planning. By the time the fighting stopped, half of the Valkyrie ships were destroyed. The rest were damaged or surrendering. Queen Thera stood on her bridge staring at the destruction. Her beautiful crystalline body had cracks in it from when the ship had been hit. Her perfect formation was gone. Her mighty empire's fleet was scattered and broken, and she finally understood what everyone had been trying to tell her. Jintae was not a legend. He was a nightmare made real. General Cora approached her with a grim expression. Your Majesty, she said quietly, we need to retreat now, while we still have ships that can move. If we stay here, they will destroy us all. But Queen Thera shook her head. If we retreat now, we lose everything, she said. Our reputation, our power, our place in the galaxy. Every species will know that the mighty Valkyrie were defeated by primitive humans. We will become a joke. A warning story that mothers tell their children. Then what do you suggest? Cora asked. We cannot win this battle. We are outnumbered now, outmaneuvered, completely defeated. The queen stood tall, trying to look regal even though she was terrified. "I will invoke the ancient right of single combat," she said. "I will challenge their commander to personal battle. Winner takes all. If I win, humanity surrenders. If I lose, we retreat and leave human space forever." Korra looked shocked. "Your Majesty, you cannot be serious. Jintai has killed thousands in personal combat. He is one of the most dangerous warriors in the galaxy. You are skilled, but he is legendary. I am the queen of the Velkari Empire," Thera said with steel in her voice. "I have trained my entire life for battle. I have studied 15 different martial arts. I am stronger and faster than any human could possibly be. And I refuse to believe that one human warrior is unbeatable. Send the challenge." The message was sent through space. It reached the human flagship within minutes. Commander Tay stood on his bridge reading the challenge. His crew looked at him with concern. Lieutenant Kai stepped forward. "Commander, you do not have to accept this. We have already won. We can demand their surrender without risking your life." But Tay shook his head. "If I refuse, she will find another way to continue the war," he said. "She will retreat and rebuild, and in 5 years or 10 years we will be fighting again. But if I accept and win, this ends today. No more deaths. No more destruction. Just one fight." Captain Mina looked worried. "The Velkari are physically superior to humans, stronger, faster. Their bodies are like living weapons. Are you sure you can defeat her?" Tay smiled, but it was not a happy smile. "I have been fighting aliens stronger and faster than me for 15 years, he said. "I have learned that in combat, the winner is not always the strongest. The winner is the one who wants it more, the one who is willing to sacrifice everything. And I have more to fight for than she does." He sent his acceptance. The meeting place was chosen. A neutral station between the two fleets. Both sides agreed to the rules. No weapons, no armor, no interference. Just two leaders fighting for their people. The arena was a circular room with transparent walls. Outside, ships from both sides watched. Millions of beings across the galaxy were watching too. This was history happening in real time. A human warrior against an alien queen. The outcome would shape galactic politics for generations. Queen Thera entered first. She looked magnificent. Her crystalline body reflected the lights, creating rainbows on the walls. She moved with the grace of a trained fighter. Every step showed confidence and power. She had never lost a fight in her life. She did not intend to lose this one. Then Tai entered. He looked small compared to the queen. Human, ordinary. He wore simple clothes. No special equipment. No impressive display. He just walked to the center of the arena and stood there waiting. But there was something in his eyes. Something that made even the queen pause. The signal was given. The fight began. Queen Thera moved first, incredibly fast. She closed the distance in a fraction of a second. Her crystalline fist aimed at Tay's head. It was a blow that could have shattered stone. But it hit nothing. Tay was not there anymore. He had moved to her side, his body shifting at the last possible moment. He did not counterattack. He just moved away, his eyes watching her carefully. The queen turned and attacked again. A combination of strikes that would have killed most beings. Tay dodged them all, his movements minimal and precise. This went on for several minutes. The queen attacking with increasing frustration, Tay avoiding every strike without seeming to put in much effort. He was not faster than her, but he was reading her movements, predicting where she would strike before she did it, turning her superior speed and strength into weaknesses. Finally, the queen paused, breathing hard. "How?" she demanded. "How are you doing this?" "I am faster. I am stronger. My strikes should be impossible to avoid." Tay stood calmly, not even breathing hard. "Because I have fought hundreds of beings like you," he said quietly. "I have fought in close quarters combat more times than I can count. I have studied every alien fighting style in the known galaxy. You are strong and fast, but you fight with pride, with ego. You want to look impressive. I just want to survive." The queen roared and charged again, abandoning technique for pure aggression. She came at him with everything she had, but Tay was ready. He did not try to block her strikes. Instead, he redirected them. He used her own momentum against her. When she threw a punch, he guided it past him and pulled her forward. When she tried to grab him, he twisted and threw her to the ground. They fought across the arena. The queen's crystalline body began to show cracks from where she hit the floor. Tay had bruises and cuts, but he kept moving, kept fighting, kept wearing her down. He was not trying to overpower her. He was trying to make her defeat herself. Finally, after 20 minutes of combat, Tay saw his opening. The queen threw a desperate strike, putting all her remaining strength into it. Tay caught her arm, stepped into her guard, and struck her directly in the chest with his palm. It was not a powerful strike by human standards, but it hit a weak point in her crystalline structure. The crack spread across her body like a spiderweb. Queen Thera gasped and fell to her knees. She tried to stand but could not. Her strength was gone. Her pride was shattered along with her body. She looked up at the human warrior standing over her and finally understood. This was not about strength or speed or technique. This was about will, and his will was absolute. Tay stood over her, ready to finish the fight if necessary, but instead of fear or anger, he saw something else in her eyes. Understanding. She finally understood what everyone had been trying to tell her, that Jin Tay was not just a warrior. He was the embodiment of humanity's survival instinct, the living proof that humans would do whatever it took to protect their own. "I yield," Queen Thera said quietly. The words felt like they were being torn from her throat, but she said them. The fight was over. Humanity had won. Tay stepped back and offered her his hand. She looked at it in surprise. He was not going to humiliate her further. He was not going to parade her defeat. He was simply offering help. After a moment, she took his hand and he pulled her to her feet. "Why?" she asked. "Why help me stand? You have won. You could do whatever you want because I do not fight for glory or conquest," Tay said. "I fight to protect my people. You have agreed to leave human space. That is all I need. There is no reason to add cruelty to defeat." The queen looked at him with new eyes. She had expected a monster, a brutal killer who showed no mercy. But instead she found a man who fought only when necessary and showed kindness when he could. It made his earlier actions even more terrifying, because it meant that when he did kill, when he did show violence, it was not from cruelty. It was from choice. Cold, calculated choice. They walked out of the arena together. Outside, both fleets waited to see what would happen next. Would there be more fighting? Would the Velkhari refuse to honor the agreement? Would this war continue? But Queen Thera surprised everyone. She opened a channel to all Velkhari ships. "Warriors of the Empire," she said. "I have fought Commander Jin Tay in single combat and I have lost. According to our ancient laws and my own challenge, we must honor the agreement. All Velkhari forces will withdraw from human space immediately. This war is over." There was silence. Then slowly the Velkhari ships began to turn away. They would go home. They would tell stories of this battle, and they would remember the name Jin Tay for generations, not with hatred but with respect. The respect you give to a worthy opponent. Before she left, Queen Thera turned to Tay one last time. "I came here thinking humans were weak," she said. "I was wrong. You are not weak. You are just different. You fight in ways we do not understand, and that makes you more dangerous than any empire in this galaxy." Tay nodded. "We fight the way we must to survive," he said. "We did not choose to be threatened. We did not want this war, but when our homes are in danger, we will do whatever it takes. Remember that, Your Majesty. Tell your people, tell the galaxy. Humans want peace, but we will never accept defeat." The queen returned to her ship. As the Velkhari flew 3 weeks after the battle near Tempest, representatives from dozens of alien species gathered on Haven. The small colony world that Tay called home had suddenly become the most important place in the galaxy. This was where the peace treaty would be signed. This was where the new order would begin. The treaty hall was built quickly, a simple structure made of local wood and stone. Tay had insisted on this. He did not want a grand palace or an impressive monument. He wanted something that showed what humans valued: simplicity, honesty, the ability to build something new from nothing. Queen Thera arrived with a small escort. She looked different now. The cracks in her crystalline body had been repaired, but she carried herself with less arrogance and more wisdom. Defeat had taught her things that victory never could. She walked into the hall and saw Tay standing by the window looking out at his fields. "Commander," she said formally. "Just Tay," he replied, turning to face her. "I told you I am a farmer, not a commander." The queen allowed herself a small smile. "You may be a farmer now," she said, "but the galaxy will always remember you as a warrior, the warrior who defeated the Velkhari Empire without destroying it. That takes a special kind of strength." Other representatives began to arrive. Ambassador Nari came with officials from Earth. Old Vex from the Galactic Council arrived with a delegation. Even some members of the former coalition came, curious to see the man who had defeated them 15 years ago and was now making peace with another empire. When everyone was gathered, Tay stood at the head of the table. He was not wearing a military uniform, just simple clothes. But everyone in that room watched him with respect and a little bit of fear. They knew what he was capable of. They knew that this peaceful farmer could become a deadly warrior in seconds if he needed to. The treaty is simple, Tay said. The Velkari Empire will withdraw all forces from human space. They will pay reparations for the damage caused during their invasion. In return, humanity will share certain technologies that will benefit both our peoples. Medical advances, agricultural techniques, things that save lives instead of taking them. Queen Thera nodded. We agree to these terms, she said. But I would like to propose something additional, an alliance between our peoples. Not for conquest, but for mutual defense. The galaxy is large and dangerous. Together we could protect smaller species from threats. The room fell silent. This was unexpected. An alliance between humans and Velkari, after they had just fought a war? Ambassador Nari looked at Tay, waiting for his response. Tay thought carefully. Why, he asked. What do you gain from this? Queen Thera looked him in the eyes. I have learned something from you, she said. The Velkari have always believed that strength comes from domination, from making others fear us. But you showed me a different kind of strength. The strength to protect, the strength to show mercy when you have the power to destroy. I want my empire to learn that strength, and who better to teach us than humanity? Tay studied her face, looking for deception, but he saw only sincerity. She had been humbled by their war, changed by it. Maybe that was worth something. Maybe an enemy could become an ally if given the chance. I will agree to a defensive alliance, Tay said finally. But with conditions. Any military action must be approved by both our peoples. We will not be drawn into wars of conquest. We defend, we protect, but we do not attack without just cause. The Queen agreed immediately. Those terms are acceptable. The treaty was signed by both sides. As Tay put his name on the document, he felt the weight of responsibility grow heavier. This was not just peace. This was a new chapter in human history. Humanity was no longer just trying to survive in the galaxy. They were starting to shape it. After the signing, there was a reception. Aliens and humans mingled, talking about trade and culture and future cooperation. Tay slipped away from the crowd and walked out to his fields. He needed a moment alone, a moment to process everything that had happened. He found Hana waiting for him by the fence. She smiled when she saw him. Is it over? She asked. Yes, Tay said, pulling her close. It is over. The treaty is signed. The Velkari are leaving. Human space is safe, and you? Hana asked gently. Are you okay? Tay was quiet for a moment. I thought I had left that life behind, he said. I thought I could be just a farmer, just a husband and father. But the warrior is always there, always waiting. I do not know if I can ever truly escape it. Hana touched his face. Maybe you are not supposed to escape it, she said. Maybe being a warrior is part of who you are. But that does not mean you cannot also be a farmer. A husband, a father. You can be both. The warrior protects. The farmer nurtures. Both are needed. They stood together watching the sun set over the fields. In the distance, they could see Sue playing with other children, running and laughing, unaware of the great events that had just taken place. Innocent and happy. That was what Tay had fought for. That right to be innocent. That right to be happy. The next day, most of the alien representatives left Haven, but some stayed behind to establish embassies and trade offices. The colony world was changing, growing, becoming more than just a quiet farming community. It was becoming a symbol of what humanity could achieve. Peace after war, growth after destruction, hope after fear. Lieutenant Kai came to say goodbye before returning to Earth. Are you sure you will not come back with us? He asked Tay. Earth Command wants to make you a general, give you command of the entire human fleet. You could write your own ticket. Tay shook his head. My place is here, he said. With my family, with my farm. I will serve as a consultant if needed. I will train new officers if asked. But I am not going back to military life full-time. I have given enough years to war, Kai smiled. I understand, Commander. But remember, if humanity ever needs the Ghost Squadron again, we will be ready. All of us. Just say the word. I hope that day never comes, Tay said quietly. But if it does, I know where to find you. Captain Mina and Sergeant Yoon also came to say their farewells. They hugged Tay, thanked him for leading them one more time, and promised to visit soon. They had families now too, lives beyond the military, but they would always be ready if needed. That was the legacy of the Ghost Squadron. Not glory or fame, but quiet readiness. The willingness to sacrifice when called upon. Weeks turned into months. Life on Haven slowly returned to normal. Tay went back to working his fields. He played with Sue. He had dinner with Hana. He did all the simple, ordinary things that made up a peaceful life. But now he did them with a deeper appreciation. He knew how fragile peace was, how easily it could be shattered. News reached Haven from across the galaxy. The Velkari Empire was changing. Queen Thera had begun reforms, focusing less on conquest and more on development. Other species were taking notice. Some were skeptical. Others were hopeful. But everyone agreed that something fundamental had shifted in galactic politics. Humanity's reputation also changed. They were no longer seen as weak newcomers. They were respected, feared a little, but also admired. Other young species looked to humans as an example. Proof that you did not need to be ancient or powerful to earn your place in the galaxy. You just needed courage, intelligence, and the will to protect what you loved. One evening, Tay sat on his porch with Sue. She was older now, 8 years old, and full of questions about everything. "Papa," she said, "the kids at school say you are a hero. They say you saved humanity from aliens. Is that true?" Tay thought about how to answer. "I did what needed to be done," he said. "Along with many other brave people. We protected our homes, our families. That is not about being a hero. It is about doing what is right when the situation demands it." "Would you do it again?" Sue asked. "If bad people came back, would you fight them?" Tay looked at his daughter's innocent face. He thought about all the things he had done, the lives he had taken, the violence he had committed. And he thought about why he had done it all. For her. For Hana. For every human child who deserved to grow up in peace. "Yes," he said, "if someone threatened you or your mother or any of our people, I would fight. I hope I never have to. I pray every day for peace. But if war comes again, I will be ready. Because that is what parents do. We protect our children. No matter the cost." Sue hugged him tight. "I'm glad you are my papa," she said. Tay held her close, feeling the weight and the blessing of those words. This was what he fought for. Not glory or territory or power, just this, the right for his daughter to feel safe. The right for her to hug her father without fear. The right for her generation to grow up in a galaxy that respected humanity. Years passed. The Treaty of Haven became a model for other agreements across the galaxy. Other species began to form defensive alliances. Trade increased. Cultural exchanges became common. Wars still happened because conflict is part of life. But they were smaller, more contained, and often mediators would point to Haven and ask, what would the humans do? The name Jintei became legendary in a different way, not just as a warrior but as a peacemaker, the man who fought when necessary but chose peace when possible. Parents across the galaxy told their children about him, about the human who defeated an empire and then showed mercy, about the warrior who became a farmer and found his true strength in protecting rather than destroying. On Haven, Tay continued his quiet life. He watched his daughter grow,